Welcome to the LaunchFamily Podcast, where we make sense of modern parenting one real conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jessica Shelley, a mom of six, former teacher, and your trusted friend helping you cut through the noise of today's parenting overload. Today's episode is all about ADHD, how to recognize it, what to do next, and how families can support their kids without burning out in the process. I'm so excited to be joined by James Douglas Jr., a therapist, ADHD coach, and wellness director supporting both families and professionals. James brings a powerful mix of professional expertise and lived experience to the table, and he's here to walk us through both the challenges and the possibilities of parenting a child with ADHD. James, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jessica. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay. Well, I want to give our listeners a little bit of context for who you are, what you do. Can you start by just sharing what led you into ADHD coaching and family therapy?
Yeah, so for me, I fell in love with psychology my junior year in high school. And ever since then, I always had a passion for learning how the mind works. And that's what led me into pursuing psychology in undergrad and then clinical mental health and marriage and family therapy in my master's. And then after finishing my master's, I was able to work with a lot of families that were living either they were living with ADHD or their loved ones were. And that's what led me to really focus my time into ADHD individuals.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of seeing a rise in families that were seeking help with ADHD specifically. Have you noticed any like trends or anything? Like, why do you think that that might be?
I think in general, mental health is talked about more. So by the cause and effect of that, I think more people are being aware and know what ADHD or mental health could look like. And I think they're starting to now like see it and then resonate with it and then seek support. So I think that's the trend, and I think it's only going to continue to increase the more awareness we have with mental health.
Yeah, just even talking about it, right? Like, it's like if you get a new car and then all of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere, you're like, oh, wait, maybe this could be something that, like, I've been dealing with these challenges. I didn't know that this was actually something versus, oh, this is just normal. With that kind of piece for parents that might be listening in today, what are some of those behaviors at home that might signal a need for evaluation or support or just like a next step?
So I think that's something that would vary depending on the age of the child. Typically, younger, they're going to have different symptoms versus maybe a teenager or preteen. So for a younger, I guess, youth, like we'll say 5 or 6 years old starting, that might look like fidgety, maybe some behavioral issues, whether that's in home or in school, maybe some forgetfulness or following through with tasks, staying on task. I want to say hyperactivity to a point that they're kids, so they're supposed to be hyperactive. So that can be a challenging one. And for the kind of preteen and teenagers, that could look like academic, at least for me, a lot of support with academics. So maybe challenges with that, or maybe motivation or focus or follow through or lack of consistency. That's a bit.
What are some of those common mistakes that parents make early on in trying to support their child that might actually be hindering their access to support?
I would say the first thing is maybe kind of which avenue they might be going in to seek support. Um, a lot of times, family will are uneducated as a whole on ADHD or maybe just any mental health ailment. So I think that's when you even need to seek support from a professional to get more information on that versus just kind of like skimming the internet or reading online. Um, and it doesn't even have to be support for the child just yet. It could be just more information for yourself to be able to make a better informed decision, whether that's seeking the behavioral assessments from either yourself or the schools or psychological testing, or maybe it's therapy if there's an area of ADHD that needs to be addressed with therapy, or maybe there's coaching, or maybe there's medication. Maybe that's the route. So before kind of making those decisions, I think it's best to inform yourself, learn the facts, and then kind of make that decision.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And like we've talked about in other episodes and stuff, like this idea of like the tribe or like the village around your child. And so I love that you bring up different, avenues, directions that you can go. Like, yes, you can go to your PCP, you can go to your pediatrician. That's a great place to start. But then also there's these other resources like therapists, coaches, the school's going to need to be involved to make sure that there's like that wraparound support there too. Why is that consistency and collaboration? Could you go a little bit deeper, I guess, on why that's so important for kiddos with ADHD to have that system of support, like in all of the different areas and all of the interactions that they're having?
Yeah, so the number one thing I think is consistency and that accountability piece that tie in with a support system. So I believe it all starts with the parents or the caregiver. So they're like the starting point and the focal point of kind of building and creating that system for their child. Um, that consistency with everyone on the same page allows for the success of the child. Like if you have one professional or the school system kind of going one direction and then the family and other professionals are going a different direction, then the child has no idea which way to go. So with first starting with the parents, making sure that all the professionals are on the same page. And the great thing about it, I think, is that with like confidentiality and things like that, you are able to connect with the other professionals so you can align. So for myself with therapy or whether it's coaching, being able to support the school for a kiddo is very important. Supporting the parents in that process with the school, and then also maybe even linking in with a therapist or maybe a prescriber as well.
Yeah, and I think too, like these families that are kind of navigating through all of this complexity, right? Like they have maybe a diagnosis or they're on the verge of that, trying to figure out which the therapies, coaches, what is like the right next steps. What would you say about, I guess, like this kind of dynamic that might be shifting or changing at home, right? So if they felt like they've been constantly like nagging at their kids, like what are some of the things that they can change at home to also help set their child up for success through these therapies, through these coaching sessions, to really kind of help shift that dynamic?
So I think going back to kind of the parents being that focal point of kind of starting that support system, they have to also be the focal point of connecting and kind of bonding with their and supporting their child. So a lot of times it could look like more directing versus kind of really hearing what your child is kind of maybe going through or experiencing or feeling in this process as well. A lot of times we don't take the kids' kind of feelings or emotions into account. And I think as the parents, also depending on the age of the child and that connection, obviously teenagers tend to pull away. If you start that early, and there's never uh, the right time, like there's no, you can start later if you kind of missed out in a few years. Being able to be with your child, be in that space with them when they're going through this process is really impactful for them feeling supported to be able to go through the coaching, go through the therapy, go through the ups and downs, knowing that they have their parents kind of right there, ready for them if they fall or if they stumble to kind of like pick them back up. And I think that is where the start of that will last a lifetime.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit about like I feel like me as a mom, right? Like so I'm always like, okay, well, how am I gonna help them navigate? Like what am I gonna do? Who am I gonna call, right? But also sometimes we forget to take this step back and be like, they're experiencing all of this too at the same time, right? And so how can we maybe be more empathetic? How can we be more open? How can we, validate the feelings that they're having and also help them like set up those systems that's gonna help them be more successful? What is that process like for a child going through that? Maybe they've just recently got a diagnosis or things are shifting at home or shifting at school or both. They've got extra therapy appointments or coaching appointments. Like walk us through maybe what's going on with the child at that.
So I think that's something that varies, but majority of the time it is they're in this process of learning skills and strategies to better support and manage their ADHD on top of learning more about themselves in a very important stage of life to where you're trying to figure out who you are as a person. So I feel what they're taking on is a lot all at once. So that's so if they have like school's not going to stop. So school's always going to have deadlines. You're always going to have tests. You're always going to have assignments. That's always going to go. So they're always going to experience that. There's always going to be the parents kind of the responsibilities that need to be done at home and things like that, expectations that need to be met. That's always going to happen. Kind of can create that space, even if it's just for an hour a week, of like, whew, let me breathe and let me talk about what I'm feeling in this kind of process. And I think obviously I would love to do it to see them more if I could in a week, but I think allowing that 1 hour to vent, whether it's venting, whether it's planning, strategizing, whatever it may be, just talking more about ADHD. I think allowing that space helps to alleviate some of that pressure that they may feel. But I do feel like there is a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense too. And kind of like their whole understanding of the world and themselves is kind of like shook in that moment, right? Like they're trying to navigate and also apply new things that they're learning in different contexts too, with like, yes, we're supportive, but also shouldn't you be making more progress, right? Like I feel like there's always I think back to my days as a classroom teacher, and there was a lot of the times where we as the educator are having to document things for the family like, oh yeah, this is the rating for their day for attention or focus, or we're using sticker charts or behavior management things. And mind you, I worked with kinder through second grade mostly, and so those like younger kids that might have just gotten a diagnosis were testing out medication if the family decided to go that route. So things are a little messy and crazy where we're all just trying to settle into what is actually happening. um but I do think, from the practitioner standpoint as the educator, it does make it be like, okay, it's like black and white, but it doesn't really involve a lot of gray area. And there's not a lot of supports out there, I think, specifically to help the child like navigate through the emotions of that, right? Like they
Yes.
feel I remember one student specifically, and he was really struggling. Like had been on medication, and then they took him off medication, and he was on different medication. And then like mom was like, "Forget it. Like things are not good at home. We're noticing these behaviors at school that are kind of starting to escalate again." And this poor kiddo, he was just like felt defeated, right? Like he's like, "Why can't I be good? Why can't I focus on my work? Like I want to do this, but I'm having such a hard time." And I think as an educator, but now as a parent, one of my children also has ADHD. It takes a lot more like recognition of the effort, I think, versus like the outcome.
Yes.
And that's kind of how I've shifted my mindset over time, has been like, oh, I can see that you're trying really hard and this is really hard for you. So like I'm right here to support however I can, but you let me know. You have to advocate for yourself. Tell me what you need. And if we still fail, that's okay. We're gonna try again a different way the next time. So what kind of strategies or things could parents try if they're, just kind of starting to go through this journey, whether their child's younger or maybe through the adolescent period? Um, what are some of those like concrete strategies that they can maybe try at home, or things that they should maybe ask for from the school or therapist or coaches to be like, hey, how else can I help my kid?
So thank you for sharing that. I think the thing that stood out to me was the praise and kind of acknowledgement of kind of the hard work. I think that's the number one thing that is very important for like kind of building that consistency. So a lot of times we're always saying kind of what they should be doing, but we kind of forget when they do the right things, we don't really kind of praise that as much. So I think additional effort on that part to kind of give feedback and acknowledgement when something is does when something is done right will definitely boost that behavior. It's kind of like just positive reinforcement. But in regards to, I guess, kind of the task at home and the consistency around that, kind of navigating it for the first time, incorporating the child into it, I think is very important. So a lot of times the kids know the kids know everything kind of they want. So you can use that, the parent can use that as their advantage. So it doesn't have to be like the final decision, but I think when you ask the child, what would they like to work for? Or what motivates you? What do you like? How do you think this could be better? What could change with this? Just that those basic questions will make the child feel more connected to the process and the plan that's being created. And then you kind of are now closer aligned and on the same page. So you should get better results and kind of better effort from the kid and motivation to reach those goals that you guys set together.
I love that too, of like the choice and voice is how I always refer to it in my classroom when we were talking about like academic choices and activities for engagement. But I think it also is that application right at home where it's like you can have a voice and a choice. Like I think maybe like I'm thinking of boundaries, right? Like my ADHD kiddo, he has like some sensory stuff also mixed in. And so, even just leaving the house, like finding the right shoes. Okay. So I have 6 children. So there, if you could imagine our doorway, it's like, okay, find your shoes and let's go. Okay. Why are you throwing a fit right now? Why is this so difficult? It's like there is a ton of shoes, and we have an organizational cubby. Like he has his own spots, but if he only sees one shoe and not the other because it's at the bottom of the pile, like that's an issue, right? And so one of the things that we started with him was we're like, okay, well, we know that we have to have shoes when we leave the house because we're going to go to the store, we're going to be out in public. Okay. So what is a different way that we can store your shoes, or could we give like an extra warning, like, hey, we're leaving in 10 minutes, you need extra time to find your shoes? And he's like, well, the thing is that I don't need my shoes when I go outside. And I'm like, well, yes, you do. He's like, no, I need my shoes when I go to the store. And I was like, okay, yes, that's true. And he's like, so I'm going to leave my shoes in the car. And I was like, okay, you can walk barefoot to the car and you can put your shoes on in the car to go into the store and leave your shoes in the car. That's totally fine.
Win-win. I love that.
So it's a win-win. Like he understood, like that was his like processing of like, no, I don't need to like have when I go out in the grass or on the sidewalk in front of our house, right? Like he understood the end goal was that shoes for the store. Something that I hadn't even considered. It's like, of course, you do this with your 2-year-old little sister. We leave her shoes in the car because that's a whole chaotic thing. But yeah, it works for him. And so that's what he does. And so I love that you encourage like those strategies, but there's also those boundaries, right? Of like, no, you're gonna for sure wear shoes. You're not going to the store without shoes. And so it's like that kind of little bit of grace. I think that comes to mind too of like we're all figuring this out together. Nobody's got all the answers.
Yes,
Um,
and I'm guilty of that
yeah.
as well. In regards to just, I think sometimes parents feel like by them being the parent, everything that they say is right or assume like the best route. When really, like the example you just gave, like it was win-win. Um, and you guys both got kind of what what you need from that situation. So it's not. I think that's why. So allowing that grace and allowing that space to even pull back as a parent and say like, let me hear this out and let me try it and maybe it could work.
Yeah, and I think like that alignment on the goal, right? Like his like boost of confidence of like, oh yeah, I can definitely wear my shoes. I can definitely find my shoes, and this is a solution that works for me. And I'm like, great. It's one less thing that I have to worry about, right? Like I'm not nagging you to get your shoes on. You're taking ownership of this too. So this is great that there's that, buy-in there. Well, one of the things that we do at the end of each episode is we actually have families that have written into our family coach, Emmy. So at Launch Family, they can write in like real questions that they're things that they're navigating through. And so I want to get your take on a couple of these questions that were written in from real families. So the first question is, we've tried charts, planners, rewards, but nothing seems to stick. So could you clarify, I guess, like why or circumstances of why these tools might fail, or how can parents maybe rethink their approach to those things, or any tips for how to kind of navigate that?
Yes. So kind of going back to the incorporating the child into that process, I think that's key. I think that's very important in deciding on kind of which route to go, charts, planners, what the rewards are. But also with ADHD, sometimes a mundane kind of task can get so repetitive that you start losing motivation and focus towards that, or just sometimes just even pure, like just, I want to go the opposite direction. So in cases like that, parent can keep it spontaneous and kind of flexible for the child, but the parents know it's planned. So they might like, so that might look, for example, so something I like to do is like, it's called a reward jar. So you have like a mason jar and it's a clear mason jar and you'll have like piece of tape and you'll have 3 pieces of tape on it, different levels. And on those levels are different things that the child would like to work for, or my children would like to work for. And every time they do something, depending on kind of what area we're focusing on at that time, they would put like pennies or marbles into that jar. And then when they get to that level, they receive that gift or whatever kind of they picked and decided for. And it teaches them when you do the right things and when you do hard work, you get rewarded for it. But I might one week just switch it up and do something completely different, but still targeting the same behaviors, but maybe have a different reward system. Maybe it's something like, if I've noticed they've done it for like a month straight, then we might be like, okay, well, this week we're doing Disney or something, or just something like that is in my wheelhouse of different things that I know they enjoy, that I know they can connect the behaviors with, kind of that reward with that, the behaviors and the hard work.
Yeah, I love that perspective too of like finding something that works and then maybe just like reskinning it, right? Like make it look a different way. And then that can also be like that remotivation. My kiddo that has ADHD, he was doing really well, like in academics. Like, so with his teacher, she was like giving him behavior points and things at school. And we started noticing like after like the third week, he would hit like a wall. And so he was like doing great for the first 2 weeks. The third week, he was like only 2 out of the 5 days was he actually like meeting his goal. And so I actually met with his teacher and was talking about like, hey, what is actually happening in the classroom? Like, help me understand because his behavior at home has been consistent, but he's still like struggling with school. And so then we decided to just change it. So he was doing like a Minecraft themed reward at school.
Okay.
And so then we shifted it and we just changed the graphics to like Mario and reintroduced it as like this whole new thing. And so then he was doing great again. And so then it became that choice. We brought in that choice piece. And so it's like, okay, this week, do you want to be working on like your Minecraft rewards or do you want to work on your Mario rewards? And then he was even like further motivated because then he's like, oh, I can get to pick now that I have two different options, right? Like I got the best of both worlds. I'm in control here, right?
Yep.
So I love that you bring that into the mason jar, which is that great visual of, that progress that they're making and those goals.
Yeah. And I think it's automatically not jumping to this isn't working, but maybe, or I'm not doing it right as a parent,
Mhm.
and maybe this just isn't the right thing for my kiddo.
Yeah.
And that's when then like the coaching support helps, or the seeking support, like, or seeking like the questions, like asking questions, getting that connection to really find out kind of what aligns for your child.
I love that you bring that up too, because I know that we've talked about that on other episodes as well, where it's like if if you read about it in a Facebook group, if you read about it on Google, if you talk to your child's teacher and then you go to actually implement it and it doesn't work, for some reason parents are like, oh my gosh, it worked for everyone else, but it didn't work for me and my kid. So it must be something wrong with me. I'm the bad mom here. I can't figure it out. I'm not able to help my kid. So I think through this conversation today is really about like having the creativity and curiosity to just like learn, ask questions, collaborate with your kid on it, collaborate with those others that are in the village to help support. I know that you do that too with your coaching and work that you do with families. So as we wrap up, okay, last question from the parents is kind of along those lines we just talked about, which is crazy because I'm just now looking at this and I'm like, wait a minute. But I feel like I'm failing as a parent because my child struggles so much. So, any advice for families or parents that are kind of shifting out of that guilt mindset?
Yeah, so I think if a parent is starting to get in that space, they also need to seek kind of support as well for themselves, because sometimes in those spaces, behaviors or emotions can come out that aren't warranted and that you don't want to kind of even be expressing or experiencing. So I think addressing that with a professional would be very helpful. But also, even kind of going back to like what we just shared, but expressing it and talking to your child about it. I mean, obviously, this is something that, well, I think it could be done depending on any age, but just, I guess, the terminology needs to be age appropriate, but sharing to them how you're feeling about everything. Because now they understand, well, it builds that connection. The child now hears that, okay, well, other people struggle as well and maybe have challenges or ups and downs. They're talking about it. Maybe how can I help my mom? Or they might not think that, but it might be like, what can I do to kind of help the situation? But it also makes it okay to be vulnerable. So now when they're in that situation, they'll be willing to maybe seek support from a professional or even their family if needed. So I think the best thing would be taking a breath and deep breathing, kind of being easy on yourself, patting yourself on the back for all the hard work you've done as well. I think that's very important.
That too, of like, we got to give ourselves grace through this. Like,
Yes.
we don't know all the answers. Our kids don't know all the answers, and we're both just trying to find a solution together. So, Any lasting thoughts for families that might be listening in today, no matter where they are in their ADHD journey?
Yeah, so it's a lifetime journey, and there's no particular starting point. And I think once you kind of learn more about ADHD, whether it's for yourself or for your loved one, you're able to better understand more about yourself, which will help you to know which way to navigate on whether there's areas of improvement or areas you like to kind of reduce or improve. I think the start is starting by just increasing your knowledge in the space.
Amazing. Well, James, thank you so much for bringing your warmth, clarity, and deep expertise to the conversation today. You've given parents not just a roadmap for navigating those first steps in ADHD, but also reassurance that they're not alone and that there's real actionable tools and resources and community out there that can help with all of the work that they're doing. So, to our listeners, if you've loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and check the show notes for more info about James's coaching and wellness work. Until next time, remember that ADHD isn't about doing more. It's about doing what works for your family. And we're here to help you with every step of the way.